Worldless is a small yet gorgeous indie game following a light as they traverse a battleground full of opposites locked in combat. The gameplay was a fun mix of turn-based combat and platforming. The story was convoluted, but the gameplay and music more than made up for that. I played through the whole main story in about 6 hours. You can see it all in the playlist in the description. But first, let's talk about the various mechanics and figure out if this game is for you. The game starts with a big bang, filling a void with blue and orange lights. Soon after, they begin to pull toward one another in what looks like vicious combat. Shortly after, you wake up as a blue light being, starting to explore and learn more about this strange life you've been created for. You'll fight your way through different enemies and find lost treasures, increasing your own strengths and abilities. It was a fascinating world with bright colors and combat. The fighting scenes weren't graphic and maybe kind of hard to tell what exactly is going on. There are a couple spots of dialogue, but it all has to be read. I don't think it would be a problem for the kids to watch, but it feels like a game that would be more enjoyed alone, where you can really take in everything that's going on. The world is made up of a few areas with differing colors and obstacles. When starting out, your traversal abilities are very limited. As you explore and discover new locations, you'll unlock skills that will help you go farther. Some areas will hide special collectibles needed to increase health or stamina behind a problem only solved by special abilities, forcing you to remember where it is and coming back later. A big part of the game will be spent in combat, hitting you against other light monsters of various sizes and color. Worldless is a turn-based game, allowing you to unleash a wave of attacks during your time limit, or trying to block and dodge incoming attacks. When an enemy is attacking, a line will flash across the screen, notifying you what type of attack is coming so you'll know how to deal with it. When you're attacking, you'll have access to physical and magical attacks for a short period. Some enemies are weak to specific attacks, so you'll need to try them all until you dial it in. Worldless is unique in the fact that you don't want to eliminate your enemies as fast as possible. Most enemies have a health bar and an absorption meter. Now, you could just beat them up until there's no health left, but there will be no rewards and the enemy will still be there. You need to play around with all of your skills to find the best way to build up the absorb meter so you can suck them up. When attempting to absorb, a random 4-button combination will appear. Depending on how much absorb damage you've done, more buttons will be shown. You can guess and get lucky for the questionable buttons, or do enough absorb damage for everything to show up. Absorbed enemies become points for the skill tree. The skill tree is broken up into the different skills available, like certain attacks or block abilities. More branches can be uncovered as you find new weapons throughout the game. There was a small description about what the next node will provide before you purchase, so you'll know what you're getting. The different nodes will require a blue or orange point to unlock, and the points are taken from enemies or can be found lying around. I didn't expect much going into Worldless, and it really surprised me between the visuals and the gameplay. From the start, the use of colors in the environment and characters was very pleasing. and the combat animations were so cool, albeit fast. There was that mechanic I loathe with items hiding behind skill blocks, but the game was so small it didn't really impede my progress. The design would bring me through areas I've already explored to progress the story, so I could pick things up without having to backtrack constantly. I loved the unique mechanics involved with combat, where you're basically punished if you start to use the same moves over and over again. They force you to think about the different moves that are available and to figure out the perfect combination to take down some enemies. Just using whatever they were weak to would diminish the HP bar and not allow you to absorb, meaning you have to start the fight all over again if you want to get that oh so precious skill point. I believe the story is laid out to be more interpretive than anything, with little dialogue from mysterious large figures being the only words to go by. I was forced to guess what was happening. I don't really care for stories told in such a way. I like a more clear-cut story about what's happening. There can be some enjoyment in making up your own ideas about what's going on, and can make for some nice discussions with the right people, or it can cause ridiculous arguments. I beat the game in about 6 hours with a little bit left to find. There were some enemies I just could not wrap my head around. I enjoyed my time with the game, but I don't really see a reason to come back after beating it once. Unless there is a fond memory and you'd like to challenge yourself once again on a boring evening. I might be a little annoyed I couldn't figure out an enemy and want to try again later with some newfound knowledge or gaming experience. It's so hard to tell the future. So, without further ado, let's give Worldless a final grade and place it on a shelf. The visuals were definitely worthy of a 5 out of 5. A convoluted interpretive story can be hard to figure out and go through, forcing me to focus more on gameplay than anything. I'm giving it a 2. The gameplay was very fun to figure out, and I didn't experience any odd bugs. That's a 5. Replayability, it comes out with a 2. There was a small portion of the game where I got lost and annoyed, but the majority was a blast. I'm giving it a 4, making an overall score of 3.6. An excellent score for an indie game, earning a spot right up there on the top shelf. If you're into decent turn-based combat that involves a little more thought than button mashing, and quite a bit of 2D platforming, this game is worth checking out. You can beat it in one long evening or complete the entire thing in a few short days. Alright, now that I'm done with this, it's time to move on to the next one. I will see you there. Bye!